Let's try that again. Good morning. All right, you got coffee, so there's no need for everyone to be asleep. That was the purpose. My name is Artis Buford. I have the pleasure of serving with the board of directors here at the Greater Easley Chamber of Commerce. We would like to welcome everyone to our final Coffee and Candidates Forum. Before we begin, we would like to thank Jim Wilson for sponsoring today's event, as well as thank Ninja Warrior Coffee House for serving as our coffee sponsor for today. So if we can, let's just give them both a quick hand of applause. Jim Wilson will be serving as our forum moderator for today. And you did hear that correctly. Jim Wilson is going to serve as our moderator for today. And so I would like at this time for us to give our attention to our moderator as he comes forth. Let's give a hand for Jim today as he comes and gets us started with these candidates.
Thank you, Artis. I appreciate that. As he said, my name is Jim Wilson, and just for full disclosure, I am not a resident of the city of Easley, but I am highly invested in the city of Easley. So I am a stakeholder in this, the city of Easley. We've been here for a while. I've been involved in Easley downtown development for quite some time. We started with our project here about 13 years ago at Doodle Station, and my wife and I have since founded the Dream Center here in Easley. So we are highly invested in the city. So this is a forum format, and the forum format is not a debate. You will be asked questions, and you will be given 2 minutes to respond to those questions. Each candidate will be introduced in alphabetical order and will be allowed 1 minute opening statement. At the conclusion, each candidate will be allowed a 1 minute closing statement. We will begin the forum with questions that are collected in advance from our chamber membership. However, written questions will be taken from the audience. You write them down on the 3x5 cards that are on your tables there. All questions will be given to me, and I will ask those questions. You will be given, as candidates, you will be given 2 minutes to respond to those questions. The initial speaker will be determined by alphabetical order, and then we will follow that by the rotation. Time limits will be enforced by Miss Cindy. You would raise your hand there in the back, and she will give you a 60-second warning, a 30-second warning, 10-second warning, and then she'll give you a stop sign warning. Is that correct? Okay. So at this time, we will begin with Mr. Coster here. If you would begin and introduce yourself and give us your 1 minute opening statement, please, sir.
Citizens for the type of development or the control or lack thereof development in the Easley area. And so they asked me if I would run based upon my education, which is a mechanical engineer, senior program manager for the CIA for over 30 years, and also business owner, David W. Coster is my name. And also for just those experiences, I think has qualified me to be able to serve Easley to the better of all the citizens.
My name is Chris Mann. I am 50 years old. I'm a lifelong resident of Easley. Attended Easley High School. Attended Clemson University. My wife Stephanie and I have 2 children. Emily, our daughter's here today. Our son Christopher is a junior at Easley High School. I am a 4-term member of Easley City Council. I've decided to run for mayor because I'm excited about the progress we made inside the city of Easley. I want to be the one to lead us forward as we continue to develop here in the city of Easley. I am a member of First Baptist Church of Easley, and I'm excited about everybody being here today. I thank the Chamber for hosting us. I thank all of you for attending. I think that this is the most important way to hear the candidates and hear what they've got to say, so thank you so much for being here today.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Butch Womack. I am also a resident of Easley, been here for all my life, except for 7 years that I lived in the great state of Louisiana, and that's a good place to be from, not live. I graduated high school here, and I built my first house in 1979 here. And I've been here ever since. In fact, been within the 1 square mile of the area I live now. Married Kathy Pitts, that is a lifelong resident of this town. We have raised 2 wonderful children, and the city of Easley has been great to me. I actually have worked for the city for 34 years, 26 as the fire chief. So my hat is off to the city for what they've done for me. They have helped me raise my family, helped me pay for my house, helped put food on my table. So it's time that I give back, and that's what I want to do now. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Are they on?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. So the first question is, we're going to start off with some softballs here. What are your plans for moving Easley forward? Starting with you, Mr. Costa.
For moving easily forward, well, I think the first thing that needs to be done is to exempt the existing businesses from it. They have signs that have been in place since the new 2015 zoning ordinance was put in place. Exempt them from having to modify their sign, because I think that's an undue burden upon the business owners. Some people like Nowley's mattress sales shop there on 123. He has estimates from $9,000 to $12,000 to modify his sign. So if we're supposed to be friendly, which is to move easily forward, make it a place where businesses want to come and set up business, we need to relieve those people from an undue burden that's very unfair. Pickens County isn't going to make people change their signs that were in place before this ordinance was adopted, and I don't think that Easley should. So I think moving forward, we also need to do that. First of all, that would be my first goal. The second goal would be to look at the annexation process and rewrite that, because right now, in my opinion, what I've seen having gone to some of those meetings, it's basically a rubber stamp. People just call City Hall, say they want to annex something, and it just happens. Then the next thing we need to do is also update the city development approval process so that we can control the growth, because we know that there's a lot of people moving south. I'm one of those people. And I know I've seen the impact of growth, like in Fairfax County, where in fact Loudoun County has signs up that don't Fairfax Loudoun County, because the uncontrolled growth just creates incredible traffic problems. It's unfair to the people that actually live there, and it's an impact on the senior citizens because they have less ability to get around and to do their daily activities. So I think we really need to control that. If we can control that and get a good mix of citizenry in the city due to having different kind of neighborhoods, I think that'll draw in businesses because they have a better business base that they can appeal to a greater economic cross-section of society. And so therefore, I think those are my first 3 things that I think we're going to do to move Easley forward.
Okay.
All right. I do think that Easley's booming right now. One of my opponents had mentioned that Easley's kind of stalling right now, and I completely disagree with that. We're booming. We just approved almost 300 new homes to come into the city of Easley on Monday night. The biggest thing we've got is to control growth. We've got to be able to sustain our growth. We've got to have safeguards in place, and I've talked about this, and this is probably my number 1 platform, is we've got to work within what we've got to look at our growth and see where it's coming from. We've got to have safeguards in place. We have a master plan in place. We follow that master plan. We work with our city planner, and we figure out, okay, how do we grow without putting undue burden on our current residents? Some of that may be with impact fees. We talked about impact fees Monday night at our city council meeting. You have to look at how do you increase your infrastructure, whether it's roads, whether it's new facilities here, whether it is new trash trucks, whether we have to hire more people. You can't just put people in place and then expect our current infrastructure to handle that. We've got to look at impact fees and developers coming in. They're paying us an impact fee to in turn buy a new garbage truck, buy a new fire truck, buy new police cars, and then we can in turn look at adding more people in place, because right now we are growing, and we're growing more than we can handle at times. So we've got to be sure we've got a handle on things and make sure that we're not burdening our residents. And then we've got traffic. Traffic is an issue. We know that. Everybody knows that traffic's an issue. So we've got to be sure that we're working with the state, making sure we've got a plan in place, and where can we make some additions and some changes to our current traffic structure.
All right, thank
I think everyone in here knows, and you're here for a reason. Easley does not have to advertise to come here. People are coming here left and right. So we're doing something right as we stand here today. Our people in town here, the department heads, the council, the mayor have done something right. So what I plan to do is take one step forward as mayor and be at every meeting because I plan on being a full-time mayor. I want to be at every meeting with the state. I want to be at meetings with businesses here to see what they want and what they need. Because those businesses are what are growing our community. The folks that are moving here are coming here to live because of that. The traffic problem is an issue, but if most of you know, you've been here all your life, you know that we've had a traffic problem for years. But unless we're at the table to address those issues, even at the table when those developments are starting, and I have been there to sit and talk to the developers and get them to ease the pain for the residents that are already here. Because again, if those new developments are here, they don't know our problems yet, but they will once they move in, and then they want a solution. Hopefully we can solve that ahead of time with the developers so we can do the turning lanes, the traffic lights, new roads if we need those, and better the roads we have now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Some of your opening comments address some of these questions, so I'm going to have to skip some of them here because they'll be very redundant. Do you think that the Doodle Trail is essential to the continued growth of Easley? Starting with you.
I think the Doodle Trail is a valuable asset. I don't believe that the Doodle Trail stands up to the Swamp Rabbit Trail that's in Greenville. It's a nice asset. It's something that we should maintain since we have it. It's something we should make sure that the people can enjoy, that it's safe and it's clean. So I think we need to keep that. But I don't believe that that's a draw to the city. It's a nice asset for the city, and the people should certainly be able to enjoy it safely. But no, I don't believe that that is something that is going to draw people to downtown Easley, just to use that. And I don't think the picture of the Doodle Trail on the side of the building, I don't think the fence that they're putting up to hold the train in is an asset to the city. I don't think that beautifies it. Well, this other gentleman said that Easley is booming. Yeah, it's booming because they're spending a lot of money on ideas that were presented over 20 years ago, that all of a sudden they want to open the coffers and just spend money without really having a plan. When I was dealing with some zoning issues, we asked to see a master plan. There was no master plan. And one of the first things I intend to do is to actually have a master plan that's available to be shown to the public so that we know what is going to be built where. But we need to make sure that we are building, and it is booming in a way because all the developers want to put in is high density building, and they're putting it wherever they can find free space to buy land and put it in. So yeah, we need to control growth, and that growth people will be using the Doodle Trail. But yeah, the Doodle Trail is a nice asset, but I wouldn't overbill it for more than it is.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I disagree. I was chair of the committee for the Doodle Trail. I was chair of our bicycle and pedestrian committee. The Doodle Trail is an economic development tool. It connects the city of Easley and the city of Pickens. It allows people that for an exercise. One, it's a health asset, keeps people exercising, keeps them healthy. Our Doodle Park, we just had a pop-up business go and have a ride this past Friday. Sweet Tea Cycles, they're opening up a business right there at Doodle Park where they'll rent bicycles, they'll repair bicycles. If you ride over to Doodle Park, you'll see the parking lot full all the time. I do think it's an asset, but I think it's an economic development tool. We are looking at bringing that. It's already coming into downtown. We're looking at expanding that out to our complex and then building spurs off of that. And we would love to be able to sometime in the long term connect to the Swamp Rabbit Trail. I think that more and more you're seeing people that want to get around in ways other than by vehicle. They're using that for bicycles, for transportation to get elsewhere. It is more than just an asset. It is a jewel that I'm proud of. It's going to be an economic tool where people along the trail are looking at opening restaurants. They're looking at opening shops. You know what? It's not the Swamp Rabbit Trail. We're not Greenville. We're a much smaller scale than Greenville. But there's nothing wrong with looking up to Greenville and seeing how they've done things in Greenville, how we can do things here. So my view on the Doodle Trail is absolutely it. You know, the more we can do with it, the better off we are.
To answer your question is yes. I think the Doodle Trail is a great asset. I've sat and watched families, friends walk the Doodle Trail, ride the Doodle Trail. I've actually rode the Doodle Trail several times. I work, of course, part-time with the sheriff's office. So the sheriff has actually started a program where he's got a golf cart now, and he allows deputies to ride the Doodle Trail to help protect it. So what I'm hoping to do is incorporate our police department in doing the same thing to keep it safe so that folks want to walk the Doodle Trail. And we want to extend it, of course. Pickens is wanting to extend theirs. We're wanting to extend ours. And I think it is a great asset to the community. I think the residents that live on it now have found out that it's a very friendly atmosphere. So I definitely want the Doodle Trail to continue. Whichever way it goes the fastest, that's what I want. I want to support it. I want to also support, hopefully one day, maybe once a month, to but exempt motorized vehicles so that we can line up elderly folks that do not have the opportunity to travel the Doodle Trail, such as nursing home folks that can move around and motivate but not walk the Doodle Trail. So hopefully we can have them tour it. This is a perfect time of year, of course, because the leaves are turning, and it's a great time for them to get out and move around and get to see the beauty. So I'm hoping to incorporate that. As long as the city of Pickens will agree to it, that's what I'm hoping to do.
All right, thank you. What are your thoughts on intergovernmental relationships? Do you think that these relationships are important, or do you see them as a distraction to Easley's issue? So I had to ask a little bit of question, got a little bit of background on this because I didn't quite understand exactly what that meant. But I think they're talking specifically about the relationships with the county and other municipalities in our county. Sure.
Sure. All right, I'll take that. Intergovernmental relationships are absolutely essential. When I started on city council, we did not have a great relationship with Pickens County. We did not have a great relationship with the school district of Pickens County. There was a lot of infighting going on, a lot of disagreement. It was rare for you to get a meeting with any of the three entities together. I'm proud to say that with some new elected officials in place in all areas, now we work closely together. We work well with the school district of Pickens County. We work well with Pickens County. We work well with other municipalities. The other municipalities in Pickens County have always worked fairly well together. The Pickens County Municipal Association is an association where we all get together and meet and talk about issues. But now, through the work, and I'll give the credit to Representative Neil Collins, there's a group called Pickens United that meets every fifth Monday. So every month there's a fifth Monday it meets. And that's where every entity in Pickens County comes together and works together and talks about the future and talks about their plans. So, we're able to do things such as the TIF district downtown. We're able to put those districts in place. We're able to work together on traffic issues with the school district. We've got a couple of schools we're looking at right now where there's some traffic relief that needs to take place. And we can't do anything with the state as far as changing the road, but we're working on plans to work with them on how do we have a little bit of traffic relief here at the schools in the morning, because our roads they're heavily traveled and it can be burdensome for people. So working together is essential. I think we have great relationships with all of our intergovernmental partners right now. So I think that there's absolutely no negative I see in working well with each other.
Okay.
I again have some history there, so I want to say that is a very positive thing, is working with other agencies. Being from the fire service, we work with other agencies right now. We have mutual aid agreements with every fire department that touches our borders. So that has came through the last few years because of the new county council that we have. Most of you don't know, but my wife actually works for the county. My son works for the county. So with that, I have friends that we meet, we eat lunch together. I call it breaking bread because that's the way you can usually get things done. Other than golfing, I don't golf a whole lot. So, but the school district, I know we've had some good relationships with the school district. So I think personally, relationships are very vital. I think they're very important. I have in my cell phone every county council person. I have several of the school district board folks. I have every fire chief in Pickens County, and I have every police chief in Pickens County. So that means something when you can pick up the phone and call somebody if you need something, whether it be just assistance for one day or assistance for a whole week. Because again, I'm relating back to my job. If we had a train derailment, if we had a tornado come through, I know the people to call, and I know I touch those people every week or every month so that I can make sure I'm friends with them. I go to county council meetings. Before the election, I was going to every county council meeting to be able to speak and hear their views on what they do daily. So I do think those are important, and being a full-time mayor, I plan to do that continuously. I plan to have meetings with our county council folks. I'm friends with them, known every one of them that are on the board now for a long time. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I'm quite pleased to hear that people are more cooperative with Pickens County than they may have been in the past. That's a positive sign. My personal experience has been, though, that the current administration that's in the city hall, they're still using Pickens County as the boogeyman for the occasions that I've been involved in when developers want to put a high density development over the objections of the citizens. In every case, representatives of the city have come back and told us that if we don't do what the developer wants us to, well, then Pickens County is going to allow them to build either a hog farm or a slaughterhouse or some other kind of nonsensical answer. So I don't think that the relationship between Pickens County and Easley is as good as it's portrayed to be. It should be better. I've talked to Chris Wilson before he retired, and he's a very nice person. I know he's no longer in office, but there is a way to work with people. And having been in a federal officer, I have worked with actually other federal agencies to cooperatively come up with plans that'll mutually benefit both parties, because we all have the same objective. We all live here. Easley is part of Pickens County, and it needs to be a cooperative effort so that when the border of Easley comes in Pickens, you don't have a complete dichotomy of opinions as what should be done or what kind of development should be put in. So I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think we need to stop the boogeyman approach of pointing to Pickens County and say, well, they can't do it as well as Easley can. And when asked to show me one development that Pickens County developed that Easley didn't, and show me what's wrong with it, radio silence. So I don't think there's obviously room for improvement. And it's good that they're talking, but as they say, talk is cheap unless you actually put a plan together and get some mutual agreement as to what the development scheme is for this entire upstate area. And I think that's one of the benefits I can bring to the table, is that I have that skill. I've already done it in my years with the Central Intelligence Agency. And also I appreciate businesses, because I had one, and I know the impacts that the regulations and all the codes you have to know and all those type of things. You have to be able to understand the people's needs and the fact they need to earn money. People need a place to live, but it still shouldn't be to adverse the other people that are currently here and are living around them. So that's my view on it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question is, are you in favor of allowing city council meetings to be streamed live on Facebook and other means of improving transparency with citizens? We'll start with you, Mr. Womack.
Absolutely. I've mentioned that in several of my interviews and talks with groups. I think that any meeting that the city council votes should be live streamed. I think any meeting, whether it be a council meeting or whether it just be a call meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, because a lot of times some of those do happen because of emergency situations. I think every meeting should be viewed online, should be recorded, because periodically things get left out of the recorded tape and written down and put on the internet. Those get left out sometimes. So I do agree with that. totally think that our budget should be put out in front of City Hall where anyone can come and look and flip through and see what's spent. I know it's online also, but that should be something that a person can come in and look at any point in time they want to. The transparency to me is open, no different than any business you have. If I go in your business, I see everything you have, and I think that's the way the city should be.
I have no objection to videotaping those things. However, I think you need to, first of all, do a cost analysis to see what's the cost of doing the videoing, what's the cost of archiving it, indexing it, and keeping a coherent record. I think what's more useful and more better for the public is if they just wrote the city council meetings in regular English with paragraphs, periods, and at the end of a sentence, 2 spaces, and then the next sentence starts. And actually, I'm no longer using code words for projects because we're not a covert operation. We should be open and transparent to the public. And if you want to research anything that's going on to get a history before you actually go to the city council meeting, wherever that ended up being worth currently, you need to be able to do some research and read it. And looking through endless hours of archived tape is not a very efficient way to find out what you really want to know. So if you had coherently written city council meeting minutes that people can review, itemized by topic, I think that would be a much more benefit to the public. But no, I don't object to them videoing and live streaming. I don't think the audience will be great because it's like watching live court or CNN, the Senate hearings. It's not all that exciting. So, but I don't object to it.
Okay. Man.
I'm in favor of anything that opens up our meetings, opens up everything we do to the public. So whether it's live streaming on Facebook, live streaming on Instagram, Snapchat, cable access, anything we can do to educate our public more is better. When I started on city council, we would have 3 to 4 newspapers represented at our meetings. Newspapers now, unfortunately, a lot of people don't get their news from newspaper anymore. I spoke to junior leadership Pickens County for the last 3 or 4 years. Now, every year I ask them, how many of you read a newspaper? In 4 years of about 80 kids represented there, I've had one person tell me they read a newspaper, and it's the New York Times. Unfortunately, now I still read the newspaper, but unfortunately, the way we're going, kids today, they don't get their news from the newspaper. They get it from Snapchat. They get it from Twitter. They get it from Instagram. So opening ourselves up and providing more people transparency is absolutely a good thing. So I'm in favor of all avenues that we can explore to put our meetings out there. I'm in favor of that.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Womack?
He started before.
You're correct.
I can't repeat
This
it.
is a little more difficult than I anticipated, to be honest with you. I thought I was just going to be reading questions. Yeah, I tell you what, my hat's off to Lawson Clary that had about 7 people up here last week with the city council. I would encourage you at this time to go ahead and write your questions down that you have, the little 3x5 cards. We'd like to go ahead and collect those. So if you, after the next question, we'll collect them. So I'll give you a chance to write them down during this question.
You should put a party hat on the person that's started this.
You know, I've tried to come up with a couple of different methods here, and that one just messed me up. So that method didn't work. We're going to try something new. All right. Next question is, do you approve of the current food truck ordinance, or do you feel it needs to be amended? If so, how would you amend it?
Since it's my turn.
I think so.
Yes. I'm not 100% versed in the food truck ordinance. I have to be honest with that, because I don't want to say something I don't know. However, I don't believe that bringing food trucks into the downtown area that adversely impacts restaurants like the Blue Voodoo. When here he's trying to make a living, and the idea is to bring people to that downtown area to support those businesses. And the food trucks, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me, is that they don't have to pay the same taxes and they don't have the same fees imposed upon them as actual the brick and mortar businesses. So I think it ought to be looked at and then actually find out what are you trying to achieve by having food trucks wherever they might be put. If it's a special event, well then food trucks are probably more than appropriate. But if it's to compete with local businesses and their restaurants to facilitate one business but then adversely impact another business, well, then I think that ought to be looked at, and probably it's not personally, just from the top level view, that's probably not a fair thing to do. Because maybe we need different brick and mortar restaurants to actually bring people there. We're not here to facilitate certain businesses or just to have people congregate in a certain area for no particular reason. So unfortunately, I'm not 100% versed in that. So I know that the Blue Voodoo has been adversely impacted by the food trucks. Other businesses have been improved by the food trucks, but there needs to be a balance, and you have to decide what it is that you really want to do in downtown, and how often are you going to have the food trucks, and what array of food is going to be in the food trucks. So I think it probably needs a little bit of study, and then come up with it and meet with the business owners and find out what is the main objective for having the food trucks wherever they happen to be put, and then what would be the most fair way, maybe it's to impose an extra tax on them to offset the cost that the other businesses have to pay and they don't, to make it a kind of a level playing field. So.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Mann.
So I was chair of the food truck committee that brought this ordinance to the table. And I got to tell you that food trucks have cost me some friends. I'm not going to lie. I've had some people that have been very upset with me on my stance on food trucks. I was in favor of allowing food trucks in the downtown. The ordinance we have now, where they are designated parking spots, certain distances from the door of a restaurant, is a solution that I think is working for the city of Easley. One of the things that I've done, and I told some people that I said, just trust us on this, and if this hurts your business by the dollars, I will go back and look at the ordinance. So I ran some numbers. I ran hospitality tax numbers. Of the 4 businesses that I considered quadrants of Easley, this being the Southwest and divided by Pendleton Street and the railroad, there are 4 businesses that operate for both lunch and dinner. I looked at hospitality tax numbers. All 4 of those businesses, their business is up. The hospitality tax numbers that they pay, their business is up. One is very minimal. It's about flat. And one goes up to 34%. Now, that's an increase over January to August of 18. Those are the most recent numbers, and I started at the beginning of the year. So for the 8-month period, January to August of 19, January to August of 18, on average, business up 7.5%. Now, I'm not naive enough to just think that it's all due to food trucks, but food trucks bring people downtown. It's been proven that more people are coming downtown, and therefore you have people coming downtown. That's a good thing. You want your business to grow, and that's how they grow, having people come downtown. So even though it costs me friends, I think that our current ordinance is working.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Womack.
Thank you. I actually sit in the meetings and heard some of the information that Chris is talking about, and it was a very in-depth conversation, some good and some bad. I do agree with food trucks. I do agree now that they have a designated place to park. Really, the only thing that I'm hearing from the community is the conflict of, and I think, again, that I may be wrong, but I was told that we would not use food trucks to compete with the businesses that are there now, such as the same food that these businesses have. We're not going to bring it in. We're going to bring different food in. That, I think, is the only thing that we're falling down on. The other thing that I think should be done with the food ordinance is I think there should be some sort of mechanism to let the other businesses know when a food truck is coming in. As it stands now, there's only one business in the downtown area that knows when the food truck's coming. And they advertise that, of course. But I think the other businesses should know too. And that way, on their menus, they can plan a different option, whether it be a special sales that day or something, to offset their sales if they lose any. But I think that should be looked at totally so that everybody can be on the same page. Again, the parking space that was, I think, decided on has been among the restaurant owners, and I think everybody is happy with that. The city itself does need to still look at parking. That is an issue, and I think that's divided some people because of the parking issues. And so those are the things that I think need to be looked at. As far as rewriting the ordinance, I don't think the ordinance should be rewritten, in my opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. There has been some well, wait a minute, let me stop. We need to collect those little cards. Do we have any questions? If you would, pass them around. Let's collect those while we got just a minute. All right, we're starting with Mr. Mann this time. I believe that's correct.
All right.
There has been some discussion regarding the utilization of trash cans for trash pickup. Are you for or against, and what are your thoughts on the subject?
So I assume you're talking about trash cans for each resident there at their home.
I would assume so.
Yeah, we have looked at that, and quite honestly, that's been a cost issue. It would cut down on some of our workers' comp issues, but I know that at one time we've got to retrofit all of our trucks. We've got to provide cans, and the cost of this was well over $1 million. So at the time we talked about it, it was a time when we felt like we couldn't justify $1 million in expenditures to upfit our trucks and provide those cans. I see positives to it. Obviously, it's a lot easier for people to wheel a can out, and it's easier for our guys. So if we can determine that this is cost effective, absolutely, I'm in favor of it.
Okay. Mr. Womack?
Yes. That is one of the main issues that folks in the residential area have asked me to do. And number one, I never really thought about it till I got out politicking a little bit, that people have issues. I thought everybody was happy, but evidently they're not. So yes, I do agree with the rollout trash cans. There are some issues, and those issues are cost. But in my resolution for that is to implement 2 wards a year, and I say that Council Ward 1 or Council Ward 2. Implement those 2 wards a year if it's a cost issue, and retrofit 1 truck, whatever it takes to pick up those cans. And then the next year, implement 2 more wards, and the next year, implement 2 more wards, and then eventually we've got the entire city covered with trash cans. The other issue that we do have with trash cans is it's a little bit harder for our elderly to get those out to the street. So I have already been researching to see if there is still a smaller can that they could be given that would still fit the retrofit truck, and that is so far I've been told yes. So I am totally in favor of it, and to tell you now, our Public Works Division is a great department. They as we speak today, they still help the elderly and a lot of our folks that are not able to get out to the street. They actually go to the house and get the trash from by the back door, front door, whichever they put it out at. So I think that could still be done with the trash cans. And also when you retrofit the truck, that does alleviate 1 employee that can be put somewhere else. So as the years go by, then you have less money involved in employees and less workers' comp claims.
Very good. Thank you.
Have an alternate opinion. I think this is.
Can everybody hear? I'm sorry, excuse me just a minute. Can everybody hear? We're good?
No.
Okay.
I have an alternate opinion. I think this is minutia. This is not a key issue for the city. We're facing much greater issues. We focus on trash cans. All the elderly people that I've spoken to much prefer is taking their trash bag out, putting it by the curb, rather than having to wheel some unwieldy trash can out there. And I also don't believe that retrofitting the garbage trucks is really going to be the right answer, because those are all backload garbage trucks. So they have to have someone wheel the can out, and it kind of flips it into the back. And all the big cities now have side dump, where they actually have 2 arms that come out, grab the trash can, dump it, put it down, and they just drive on. So if you're ever going to gain any efficiency, what you really need is new trash trucks. Now the estimate is not just $1 million. Now you're talking several $1 million. And of all the issues that we need to face, all the ones that need to be addressed, has to put brain power to. I don't think dealing with the trash can issue has worked great. I haven't heard anybody complain and said they really want to have a rolled out garbage can that blows over in the wind. And they got to roll it in and roll it out. Is it any kind of a big deal? Why is the government focusing on this kind of an issue when there's much greater issues to be dealt with? So I have an alternate opinion, and that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, sir. Chris,
I
have you answered this?
I have answered. Yes.
I definitely need the party hat. All right. Moving on. All right, I'm going to mix in some of these questions here, guys, because I think some of them get a little dicey. What will you do to address drugs and crime, loud noises in neighborhoods across the tracks? If the same issues existed in Middle Creek or Smithfield, the problem would have been addressed long ago. We're starting with Mr. Womack.
Well, number one, I think every resident should be treated the same by every employee of the city, whether it's the police department, public works, fire, whoever it is. But what my plan is to do with the drugs is to get the other agencies, just like we talked about earlier, involved. Our police department cannot handle every situation that comes up. So what I want to do with the drug problem is incorporate and get a partnership working through the sheriff's office and SLED and some of those agencies that can come in here and help us. And they're readily available. They have the resources. They are more than happy to. I know some people say that's not true, but they already come in here and regulate various things, such as our drinking establishment. SLED takes care of that now. So we can open our doors and invite them in and solve a lot of the problems with that. Now, the direction we're going as far as where somebody's not being treated fairly, I think that needs to be addressed on a one-on-one basis. If somebody is not being treated fairly, when they call, that should be addressed through that department head.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Costa.
I agree with Mr. Womack. I think people should be treated fairly. I'm not sure it's a fair statement to say that one area is getting better treatment than another. I've personally seen that, and I haven't been here that long. But yes, people need to be treated fairly, and I think it would be a benefit that the people that live in the different wards had a ward meeting with just those people and ask them, how much vigilance do you want applied to music or something, just as an example. But you need community support so that if the police do go there and ask somebody to turn down their radio, no matter what side of the track it's on, the people actually respect the law and do what the officers say because they're here to protect and to serve. But if you have people that collectively say, you can tell us, but you're going to have to arrest us, well, now you're really starting to up the ante as to just how much presence do you really want in the neighborhood and what are the social consequences of that. And you're going to have the community support to actually take the hard line and make people obey the noise ordinances. As far as drugs go, I'm all in favor of cameras. They're an excellent tool. They're a force multiplier. It's been proven. If China has hundreds of thousands of them, they can find people that in minutes. And this is a great opportunity that if we have problem areas, we can put in covert cameras and actually photograph who is doing it. We can find out who they are with facial recognition software, and you can actually go after those people in a surgical way, and not just a broad sweep of just harassing people, thinking that they might have been the ones that were perpetrating things. And also working with other law enforcement agencies. Yeah, we do need to curb drugs. We need to make Easley the place where drug dealers don't ever want to even come close to. And that would be my goal as mayor, to make this the most drug-adverse community in the upstate. But it takes work and it takes cooperation. And I think the way to start is to go have board meetings to actually discuss with these people that this is what we'd like to do. We have your full cooperation, and we need some partners in this because you can't force that. You have to have people want to have change.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I would hope that we don't treat some residents differently than others, but I also know that some people that may happen, and I would hope that we don't. One of the things we've got to do is we do have to be equal across the board in how we do things. I think that we are working on, and we continue to be a little bit more diverse in our police department. Chief Tollison's working on having a police force that represents the diversity within the city of Easley. I think that's one key there, because unfortunately sometimes you do trust people that look like you more than you do others. So we've got to work on making sure that diversity is there. And then we've got to stay on top of things. I know of a couple of areas. I've talked to a couple of people about some things, and I've talked to Chief Tollison about it. And unfortunately, sometimes when you go to make an arrest or you go to search, they've already been alerted that the police are coming. And that is a problem. We know that there are people telling people, hey, look out, here comes the police. They know they're on their way, so they're being alerted. But we've got to stay on top of things. And sometimes, unfortunately, these investigations take time, because if you can't catch somebody right in the act, you can't do anything to them based on what you're hearing. You have to have evidence. You have to have facts. So I think that we've got to continue working with other agencies, as Chief Womack said, bringing in agencies to help us. We've got to be able to stand up as citizens and say, hey, I see this happening. This is happening where I am. Because I've done ride-alongs with police officers, and we'll see somebody that's wanted. They'll run in a house, knock on the door. He's not here. There are people looking out for them. So there is some community responsibility to it, but as an agency, our police department will continue to stay on top of things and use the community and use the citizens to help us in those fights.
All right. Next question. I think this is for Mr. Coster. What will you do to improve living conditions in the areas of poverty, crime, and drug activity?
Well, as full-time mayor, I think if there's concerns in those specific areas, and I don't have a specific neighborhood in mind right here, they have people that come actually talk to the mayor and find out and express what their concerns are, and it might require some sort of an action plan put in place to kind of address it. And there's also, but on the other hand, people also have to take accountability for their own actions. I mean, we could work with some of the paint stores if people want to actually paint their house. The ones that can't afford it, if they prove that they really don't have the resources to do that. And there's also other avenues where volunteer people can help clean up yards and do maybe some general cleanup and things of that sort. But you have to find out exactly what area you're talking about. What is the primary concern in that area? And then what kind of plan could you put together with what kind of resources might be available? And it's probably going to take a lot of volunteer resources to address it. I don't have an action plan today for every neighborhood, but that's how I would approach it.
Okay.
I mean, we can't go into a neighborhood and tell them, we know you have problems. Now tell me everything you know, and I'll answer and I'll solve all your problems. You have to have them come to the civil government, express their concerns, and then once you know what their concerns are, prioritize those concerns, put a plan in place to deal with those concerns, and then see if you can execute it within budget or with outside resources and volunteer helpers. I don't know any other way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
I think the biggest thing is there are two things. One, we've got to work on more affordable housing, and the city has partnered with some private developers working on public-private partnerships on affordable housing in certain areas. I think that's one of the keys to make sure we've got more options there, because the American dream has always been on your own home, I think, and that's part of the dream there. But we also look at other things, because we talk about millennials, and millennials as a whole don't want to own their own home. So we got to look at other options as well. But affordable housing is one, and then we've got to go in and we've got to hold some of these landlords. We've got to hold their feet to the fire. Many homes in the city are rentals, and some of these homes are atrocious. So we've got to work on holding their feet to the fire and making sure that the living conditions in these homes are something that any of us would live in. We have condemned some homes that were just atrocious, where there was no power, no running water, just holes in the floor that you could see the ground. We've done some things, and we've stepped up our efforts, but that takes also the community coming forward and saying, hey, here's an issue here. We've got to police it a little bit better. We got to look at it and say, okay, where's the undue pressure? But also when you do that, you put pressure on the residents, or you pushing residents out, and sometimes you weigh those things on, or what are we doing to that resident versus what would we be doing if we condemn their house? It's a touchy subject. It's one that's not very easy to do, but being sure that we've got standards that people are living up to, I think that's the main thing we've got to do.
Thank you.
Well, I think our number one situation there is our council member in that ward. I think that we should have an open door policy for that council member to come in and express their concerns, whether or not it be one house, a whole community in their area. But I think they're elected to stand up for their folks that represent them, that vote for them. So I think that's our number one issue. The number two is I have, for over 20 years now, we've had trustees that come into the fire department on weekends, and we use them to pick up trash. We use them to go out there. They don't have to be guarded. They're just here to serve some hours with us. So we will take any calls that come in. The city actually, the city administrator actually advertises to each council member to report streets or areas that you deem that there is trash that need to be picked up. And then we will take these trustees out and leave them there till they get that street or area collected and picked up. We have also reached out to churches in the past, and they've got youth groups that will go out and clean up and do whatever we ask of them, but they have to be supervised, of course. And those are areas that I think we can do to clean up. And as the folks see that going on, then immediately they take it on their own to clean up some themselves. And they are residents that are not able to get out and clean their yards up. But I think we, as a city, can get groups to help them. Again, I go back to churches because churches are a big thing in the city. And I think anytime you would ask a church to help out a resident somewhere, whether it be to cut back the brush or whether it be to take some debris out of the yard and get rid of it, I think they would definitely step up and do that.
Okay, thanks. All right, the next question addresses education. With Easley's booming growth in population, Easley currently is one of the largest middle schools in the state. What will you do to advocate with the school district to address this? Families are moving to this area, are looking at education and facilities when considering Easley as their home. What are your thoughts and plans? And we're starting with Chris.
All right. I think that, and I want to commend Ms. Garrison here on our school board. They're doing a fantastic job, and I just saw some news that our SAT scores in Pickens County are above the state and national average, so congratulations on that. But I think that working with the school district, when I've been on city council, there was a time when we were looking at 2 middle schools, and I know Mayor Bagwell stood up and said we need 2 middle schools here. At one time, Easley Junior High School / Geddes Middle School was the largest middle school in the state. And we do need to work together to be sure that we're not sacrificing any child's education or their availability in any way because we're overcrowded. I think that we need to figure out how to look at a second middle school, and that's not my job as a mayor, but working with the school district, I think you got to figure out how can we get to the table and do that. We are continuing to grow. Our classes each year are bigger than they've ever been. I heard a number that there are over 500 or 600 in our 6th grade class right now, and that's huge. There's some middle schools in the state that don't have 600 kids in them. So I think that we've got to figure out what's that number and what's that comfort level that we can handle in our middle schools, and look at how do we do a second middle school and be sure that we are handling the growth correctly.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with Chris totally on that. I think the school board are very educated on that. I think the school board should be the one giving us the advice as to which direction to go. I think as they move with that position, if we need a second school, then I think the city should be part of the planning process so that we don't end up with new traffic problems. I think the school should be located in the highest density area, of course. I don't think we need to vacate any more schools. None of us want to see a vacated school and sit there and not be used. If we have to tear one down to rebuild what needs to be put there today, I think that needs to be done. But I would definitely work hand in hand with the school board to assist in any way possible to make that happen, because we not only have residents of the city that go to Gettys Middle School, but we have residents outside the city that go to Gettys Middle School. So that being said, that we need to incorporate all of those folks and all those ideas is to make sure we assist them in locating the school in the best possible area.
Well, I think schools are very important. It's a big draw to a community. The Easley High School is a 5. That's not a big draw. That's why people prefer to go to the Wren High School, because I think it's a 9. It's a big draw for people coming into a community. So it's a very key element in our society that we need to have high quality schools, because that draws in a lot of people, and it also serves our community much better by having well-educated people that can then reinvest in this community. But there's a lot of school policies on how things are done that are beyond the control of the mayorship. They could be addressed, but it also points to the fact that we really need to control growth. And because what we build here in Easley with the 1,100 new homes that are going in, they probably all have children. We already know the schools are almost overcrowded. If you bring in trailers like they did in Fairfax County, that always ends up as a disaster. That's just, and then you go with a split schedules for the children. It messes up the home life. It has a huge impact. So you have to make sure that the infrastructure is there first before you start bringing in the people. Because once you have the people here trying to impose a new infrastructure, it's very difficult. It's very disruptive. So if we can control growth, kind of just tamp down the amount of new kids coming into the area, so we can actually put a plan in place as to if we need a new school, truly, do we renovate some of the closed schools and bring them back up to where they can serve the community where they currently are, and there's busing available, of course. Then those are the things I think we need to address, because I agree. But a lot of the problems that we have in the schools is beyond our control, because a lot of discipline is an issue, but how they handle with discipline is way beyond what the mayor can control. I have a personal opinion on what I would do. I knew how it was done in the 60s and the 70s. It worked very effectively, but that's no longer in vogue. So yes, that's a whole entire suite of issues that ought to be looked at not only the local level, but the county level, because we're integral with the county, but also at the state and actually national level, is how are we going to educate the kids?
Okay, thank you. Next question, will you be a full-time or part-time mayor? Starting with Mr. Womack.
Yes, sir. I definitely will be a full-time mayor. My plans are to retire from the fire department and start that job immediately. I have said I'd like to have a week off to go out of town and have some rest and relaxation after this tremendous campaign. But yes, sir, I do plan to be full-time, because I think that is the only way to be there for the citizens. I plan to have sessions even after 5 o'clock for those citizens that work and cannot get back to City Hall or various areas, whether it be a church meeting or what it be, because I want to hear all their concerns. No, I'm not going to be a magic ball and be able to satisfy every citizen in town. That's never been done. But I want to hear their views, and I want to hear their complaints, and I want to hear their issues, because I want to see what their remedy is for that issue. I want to see what their idea is to solve that problem. Because again, it's easy to give you a problem, but solving it's a different story. So I think being a full-time mayor, living here and work for the city all these years, I think makes a big difference.
I intend to be a full-time mayor. I served our country for over 30 years with the Central Intelligence Agency. And you can thank us because you're still speaking English and we haven't been taken over because we did our job. There's a lot of bad press, but we do our job and we serve in the country. Oh, and after looking at the way Easley needs and what Easley really needs, is a strong leader that can actually put some plans in place, redo some things to protect our community and keep it nice and kind of a small town charm, bring in some of the big city amenities. And so I know to do that, requires a full-time person. So yes, I intend to be a full-time mayor. I'm going to come out of retirement and be a full-time mayor.
So the city of Easley is set up as a part-time mayor, as you know. Changing to a full-time mayor would require a vote of the city council to change both the pay structure and the hours. Granted, you don't have to be a full-time mayor to be a full-time mayor. You can be part-time in pay and continue to be there all the time. I am not retired, so no, I will not be a full-time mayor, excuse me. But the biggest thing you've got is you've got an administrator and you've got department heads in place, and you put them in place to run the day-to-day operations. I see the role of the mayor as being the vision setter, being the voice, and being the face of the city. I don't see the mayor as having the absolute hands-on micromanagement day-to-day operation. I think you leave that in the hands of your administrator. I think that format has served us well over the years, and I think that moving forward, it's a format that we should continue working with.
I think you can address it in your closing comments, if you would, please. We don't want to set up a debate type situation, so we just want to answer the questions that are asked, and we'll be consistent with everybody. So you'd be glad to address that in your closing comments, please, sir. All right, our next question is for Mr. Costner. Easley has a mayoral council form of government which grants administrative power to the mayor. Would it be appropriate for any of your relatives to work for City Hall?
Actually, the city of Easley is a strong mayor, weak council form of government. It's established as a full-time mayor. Correct there. According to Columbia, we're set up currently as a full-time mayor with they call that a strong mayor and a weak council. So to change that would require a vote. So I have a correction for Mr. Mayor. But
The question was, would it be appropriate for any of your relatives to work for City Hall since you do have administrative powers?
I think if they were given the same hiring opportunities and went through the same screenings, then the answer would be yes, because they're a citizen of Easley too. They shouldn't be excluded because they happen to be related to someone. However, they should not get a special privilege in order to work just because a relative is works at City Hall. But that would be the case because my son's a computer consultant for the Federal Reserve, and my daughter's a nurse practitioner at Prisma. So they're not really in a position to work here locally anyway. But yeah, as long as everyone's treated fairly, go through the same application process, same screening process, same interview process, and has a fair and equitable review, then why should they be excluded?
Thank you, sir.
I don't think it's any secret. I do have family that works for the city of Easley. As a matter of fact, Mr. Womack and I are related by marriage. His wife and my mother are first cousins. So as long as it doesn't affect decisions and their job performance, we do have a nepotism policy in place now, but there are some instances where in a small town like this, there are going to be people that are related to each other. I think that what you do is you put some safeguards in place, and I've always said that if any of my family, I've told every one of our administrators, if any of my family members are not performing at their job, you handle that. You don't worry about what I say. You handle their job performance based on the fact of what they're doing in their job. So, I don't see an issue with it as long as the jobs are being handled independently of each other and it's not a direct supervisory role, then I don't see an issue with that.
I personally, as your mayor, will not have anyone working for the city that is related to me. I don't agree with that because I know that does cause a little bit of controversy periodically. Now, if other family members of other employees work here, as long as they're not a department head is not, I'm not over them, and the department head is over them, I don't have a problem with that. I think we have some of that already. I think we have some folks working in one department and possibly another family member working in another department. I don't have a problem with that. But I personally do not plan to have any family members working for the city while I'm here. My wife worked here for 33 years, and she left and went to Pickens County, not because of me, but we did have we did have a controversy at one time. She was given the opportunity to be the city clerk, and because I was department head in the fire department, then she was told she could not put in for the job because of me. And that was a problem because I think she could have still continued and done her job, and I could have still continued done my job. So I think what was just said is it could have happened then and been done right, but it was not. We were targeted and not allowed to do that. So I do not plan on putting any of my family members in that position because that, to me, that's a target on their back to be abused by other employees.
Okay. All right. Downtown city residents do not currently have trash pickup. Downtown residents argue that they pay city taxes and they want access to the same resources all other city residences enjoy. What are your thoughts on this subject, Mr. Mann?
I think that we did move away from commercial pickup at the time. There were, and when you say downtown residents, I assume you're talking about residents that live in apartments here in Old Market Square or over on the other side of Pendleton Street. That would be my guess. I do think that we need to revisit that. We need to figure out a system. As I said, we went away from commercial pickup, and at the time there were a few residents, I guess, but there were very few when we did it. So I think that we probably do need to re-examine that because you're right. They pay their taxes just like a citizen that lives, anywhere else in the city. So it's probably time that we sit down and re-examine that philosophy. Yes.
Okay.
I too have been asked about that, and I agree with it 100%. I think that as we continually grow and go to the trash can form of pickup of the downtown area, my philosophy, and of course this is just the rule of thumb, is if that resident can put their weekly trash in that one can, we should pick it up. If it is a position to where they're filling up 2 or 3 cans, I think that's considered a little bit more business-like. So as far as the residents downtown, I do agree they need to have a place to pick it up, put it in and have us pick it up because as the city already knows, and we've heard this in various meetings, we're already picking their trash up. They're taking it and putting it in some of our receptacles out there in Old Market Square now and various places around town. So they're having to hide what they're doing and take their trash somewhere where we could just normally come by and pick it up. My views of that is what I plan on doing, and we did this years ago, is come back to a part-time person that comes in from 10 o'clock at night to 2 in the morning. And the times can vary just depending on the traffic. But that person would come into Public Works office or Public Works division and would go out and pick up that trash so that it's not interfering in our daily downtown traffic. And they would also clean our streets and clean our areas up and empty our receptacles downtown so that it doesn't hamper any of the traffic in the daytime.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with where this issue is actually an issue. If it's the residents that live above the old part of Easley, like apartments or apartments in general, the apartment owner should provide them with a dumpster or some place to put their trash, and then that could be incorporated in their monthly fee or rental or something of that sort. But everybody should have a trash picked up. But how it's performed, because I'm not sure if the city of Easley has any forklift garbage trucks that lift up a dumpster and dump it overhead, put it in the back. But if that's not the case, and we have residents living in apartment areas or townhouses that have a communal dumpster, well, that may be part of their HOA fees or partial payment or something. There's probably something to be worked out with the city. But since they are paying city taxes, there needs to be an equitable garbage pickup. Because if you don't have garbage pickup, you have vermin. If you have vermin, then you're just spreading more problems in your bad scene. So yeah, it needs to be looked at, and it should be. I'm sure there's an equitable solution that can be made.
Okay. All right, next question. Are there new programs that you feel should be initiated for the city or residences of the city? Starting with Mr. Womack.
Yes, sir. I do, and I think what I would like to do is have various council people in the wards come up with citizens that live in their area that would be on committees for the city to come back with suggestions and ideas for us to implement. The city has been very instrumental in having someone that come up with new ideas and new things to implement in our parks. Our Park and Recreation Division has done good with that. But I think if we hear from our constituents, just like I've had one that's wrote me about a skate park. And I think a lot of you, if you've been here a long time, you know we've had a skate park before. And it was an issue. I think it finally just ended up that the skating disappeared or something. I don't know what happened, but they quit using it because they had a gentleman at one time that was over it. And he would charge so much per day per person, and they'd bring that money to City Hall. So yes, I look for the community to give suggestions and ideas about that.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm a believer in minimal government. Our job is not to make work and to expand the government into every avenue that someone might come up with. If there's a true issue, there's avenues today that issue can be brought to the city council, to the mayor, and if it's a legitimate concern or a legitimate issue or a legitimate want, then there's a plan put in place to address that. But we're supposed to be a government of the people and for the people. And I don't think that we just solicit people for, how can we spend money? What's a great idea that maybe we should do? Like the skate park that the other gentleman was talking about. That's a private business. That's not something the city should be involved in. We're here to make sure that the laws and the ordinances that are on the books today are equitably executed amongst all the citizens. And we're here to put a master plan together to protect our city from just uncontrolled rampant growth by out-of-town developers so that we can maintain the environment that we've enjoyed for all these years. Because once it's gone, it's gone. And I think therefore we shouldn't, if there's a true need and true want, believe me, it will serve us through the right avenues, or it'll be directed to the right venue where it can be actually assessed and addressed, and if it's warranted, something can be done about it. But I don't believe that we should just be out soliciting things that we could do to make sure that our budget, we spend every penny in our budget. We can save money, and we can reduce government, and give the services that the people deserve and warrant. Well, then I think that's the purpose of the government, and that's how we should just leave it.
I think anytime you could put a program in place to have people have more awareness of the government, it's a good thing. I know that we had a Citizens Police Academy. Chief Tollison set it up where citizens could come and see kind of what our police officers go through some training with that and just kind of see the things that are put in place. I think that's a good program. I think that at one time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Chief Womack's done some things like that. They've got an Explorers program. It's not necessarily a city program, but anytime you can do something where you bring people in and see how the city works, see how the government works, I think it's a good thing. So I think that you work on programs and figure out how you make your citizens more involved. One of the things I mentioned earlier in speaking to junior leadership Pickens County, the teenagers, I don't think we give our teenagers enough credit. Our teenagers are unbelievably bright, and they want to be involved. They think that adults do not listen to them for their ideas. One teenager suggested to me, how about having a non-voting seat on city council for a student at Easley High School, where the student body would vote and elect, just like they do their student body president, where they would elect a representative to come and sit, and they could bring ideas to us from the high school, and then they could take back to the high school what the city's doing. I think that's a great idea. You look at involving more people, and you work on things to where the citizens are engaged. I think the city is run best when the citizens are engaged.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have got time for one more question, I'm told by our timekeeper there in the back. So we've got this question. What is your top goal for your term as mayor? We're starting with Mr. Coster.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I have 10 items on my campaign promises. The first is to exempt existing business signs from the 2015 business ordinance. That's first on the books. Then I want to review the legality of the 12.5-acre land giveaway, because I think it was never boarded as far as I'm concerned. The people that are making decisions of what's going to be built in the last 100 years is going to be done in-house by non-voted on people, the staff of the so-called planning and development in Easley. Revamp the city annexation process and procedures, update the city development process and procedures. I'd like to review the city pay work scales, because currently a lot of them only make $13 an hour. With a 2% COLA, that's $10 a week. And I would hate to try to live on $13 a week, $13 an hour and raise a family. So that needs to be looked at. If we have extra funds, we should try to bring the best people in to serve our community as we can and review and up their pay scales. I'd also encourage the youth life speaking engagements. I think it's the mayor's job as a representative of government that we ought to go into the high schools, go into the homeschool groups, go into whatever Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops, and actually here's the mayor telling you that there is hope, there is a future, you don't need to be on drugs, just stay the course, study hard, and I think that has a big impact on kids. I'd also would like to install an electronic billboard at 123 and 153. Therefore, we can advertise events within the city. We can give people their 15 minutes of fame, like who's a valedictorian of Easley High School for 2018. Nobody knows, but you can certainly put his name up there, encourage the type of behavior that you want to be seen in the city. Beautify Easley. I think we can let some studies be done by grad students at the universities, come in and look at what our situation is and make proposals. It's a cheap way of doing things and getting a lot of brain power that they spend a lot of money to get their master's degree. And also perform a zero baseline budget review to make sure we're spending the money where it should, not just frittering it away. And also keep Easley safe for our citizens, because that's key.
Thank you.
I think that, as we've talked about here and has been talked about over the campaign, the biggest issue facing Easley is growth, and with growth comes traffic. We've got to be sure, again, that we have those programs in place to be able to handle that growth. Safeguards in place. We talked about impact fees. We just talked about that Monday night at our city council meeting. Impact fees are a way that eases the burdens on the citizens. So I think the number one concern for me is how do we handle that growth, but also with that growth, how do we handle the traffic? I know the city met with traffic engineers yesterday. They talked about short-term, medium-term, and long-term projects. Traffic is an issue. And part of the issue with 123 is you can turn left every 20 feet, you go down 123, and that's an issue. Short-term, it may be a headache where you can't turn left into a certain business. You have to go to an intersection. You may go to a part where we have to do a U-turn, where you have to go back. We've got to figure out a way to keep traffic moving. Some statistics that I've heard that I find hard to believe. The first one is, in the last 10 years, traffic on 123 has not increased at all. There's not been an increase in traffic. But traffic has increased on Rock Springs Church Road, Highway 8, Sheriff's Mill Road, and Socolol Road 100% over the last 10 years. The reason 123 is not increasing is because people are taking the back roads to get to where they want to go. If you live where I live, down behind West End Elementary, and you want to go out to Sam's, I'm not getting on 123 at Pendleton Street. I'm going through, I'm bypassing parts of 123 and going out that way. So the car numbers on 123 have not increased, but the people have. So we've got to figure out, how do we put the traffic controls in place? 4-way stops, 3-way stops, traffic signals, where we keep traffic moving, because there's some intersections where there's one stop sign, and Pearson Road's a perfect example at Popefield Road. If you hit that at the wrong time, you could sit there for forever. So we've got to look at those things, and where do we put those stop signs and traffic lights in place?
Thank you. Mr. Womack.
I see some of the same issues with the traffic. We all travel around and we all take shortcuts, what we deem that as long as our car keeps rolling, we're happy. It's when it stops that we get mad. So that's what I try to do too. I try to go the easiest way. I try to turn right. I know we all probably do the same thing. If you don't, eventually you will, so you don't get hit. There is a problem on 123. As you know, the police department, the fire department respond out there almost daily from an accident, especially around the Walgreens drugstore area, where people are still turning where they're not supposed to. They've actually got a sign there, they're not supposed to turn, they still turn, which causes an accident. One of the other things that I see as an issue is our leaf and grass and yard debris pickup. That's always been an issue. I think that Public Works that department needs to grow a little bit. We need to increase the efforts there so that the subdivisions that I see are having the problems, and I don't live there, of course, is Westchester and Hamilton Park. Some of those areas that we as a city have allowed them to come in and buy a home on a small lot. That's not their fault. That's our fault for allowing it. They don't have a place to put their debris. My house, I don't have a problem. Mine can lay out there for a month. It's not a problem. I have a large area in the front yard, in the front, right on the road. But these smaller areas that we have should have leaf pickup and debris pickup at least once a week, if not twice a week.
All right, thank you. Well, this concludes our question and answers portion, but I do we will give each candidate a 1 minute for closing comments. And in the spirit of being a W and always having come last in every roll call in my life, we're going to start with the W on the other end of the table down here. We're going to come this way.
Maybe you'll forget by the time we get down there. I get to go twice.
Well, you know what? Listen, I take that. I take that one.
Okay. My last comments are, my heart is here in Easley. My heart has been here for 34 years, and even before that, I didn't, as a youngster, I didn't know what I wanted to do. A lot of us don't. But as I've grown and seen what we can make Easley, that's where I want to be. Most of you don't know that back in the early 80s, prior to my coming to the fire department, I actually owned a business. I owned a vending machine business. I had over 100 machines. And it was a very, very prosperous business. A local man in town here got me started, and we prospered that. But guess what? My family was not happy. That's when I ended up with the city of Easley. I ended up here at the fire department where I've worked for that length of time. And so that's where I found my home. That's where I've been happy. That's where my family's been happy. And that's where I plan to stay. Thank you.
I think we're all here for the same reasons, and that's because we love the city of Easley. I mean, there's no secret. It's a great place to live. I've had opportunities to leave and have no desire to leave. As I said, I've graduated from Easley High School. My daughter graduated from Easley High School. My son's a junior now. So Easley is home to me. And that's exactly what I see for most of us here. Easley is home. We love it. I want to be your mayor because I want to be the person to take the baton and carry us forward. I do think that we're booming. I do think that we're growing. And with that comes great responsibility. And I want to have that responsibility to be your mayor in this election. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your questions. I appreciate your love and your concern for your city.
I second Mr. Mann's sentiments. However, I wish you would consider me as a voter. I'm an outsider, lived in many places, worked at the highest levels of government with the other government agencies, mechanical engineers. So I've been trained to analyze data to find out what is the true issue that we're trying to deal with. I've actually been a program manager, senior program manager, where I've been given assignments from executive orders on down to just things you want to do within the agency. Do we need this done? You put a plan together, you find how much it's going to cost, how many people it's going to take, and you get a plan together and you execute it because we want this done by a certain date. I've done that, so I think I can lead Easley in the right direction. I'm a fiscal conservative, so I think we ought to focus on the key elements and then kind of put the side ones as they come up, we'll deal with them. But we ought to look at the big rocks first and deal with those to make sure that we can preserve what we have. Because once you lose it, and if you go to other places that have lost it, like Fairfax County, like Boston, like some of these other places, it becomes a very miserable place to live. And if nobody wants to live there, what do? As soon as they can? They leave, like me. I'm great. To a nice place like the upstate. This is where we chose to live. And so I would consider it my home. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This time we'll invite Mr. Artis Buford back up for our closing comment. Thank you, sir.
Can we give our candidates a hand real quick?
Thank you.
All right, well, this concludes our forum and our series, Coffee with the Candidates. And so we're thankful for all of you who have been able to participate and come on these candidate series as we've been able to hear the candidates for the City of Easley elections. Before we adjourn, the Chamber would like to thank all the candidates for participating today and for your willingness to serve our government in elected positions. Additionally, we would like to thank the Pickens County Republican Party for providing the opportunity for these forums to be videoed and being able to share these forums, all of the series online. Thank you. Then finally, we would like to thank Mr. Jim Wilson for sponsoring today's forum. We would like to also thank Ninja Warrior Coffee House for serving as our coffee sponsors. Last but not least, we want to thank all of you for participating. We value your support and your participation. And please remember that on November the 5th, 2019, you need to find yourself in the voting polls and in the booths. You are now adjourned. You're free to mix and mingle and also converse with the candidates. Thank you very much.